On the internet, when I'm telling people things they already want to hear, they seem to find me real easy to understand. And when I'm delivering a message they don't want to hear, when I'm giving people advice that's inconvenient to them, that challenges their ego, that challenges what's convenient in their lives, that challenges their enjoyment of things they enjoy, all of a sudden, what I'm saying seems to get real mysterious, seems to get real abstruse, seems to get real hard to understand. So I know, I have a lot of experience with this now, over 1,000 videos on YouTube. And when you say something as simple as, you know what, there's a big difference between reading philosophy, like Aristotle, and playing video games. Oh, it's so abstruse. What are you really saying? Where are you going with this? What are the implications of this argument? Really? How do you define? I had several people writing in to say that my claim was logically flawed. So the claim that when I look back at my childhood, playing Zillion on the Sega Master System, when I look back and I think about that memory and the time spent and the hours invested in that, and then I try to play the same video game today, I compare that and the value of that in my life to, again, I think it was actually age 19 and age 39, but 20 years apart, reading the same book of philosophy by Aristotle. And I comment on that and I reflect that and I say to the camera, I hope you make the right choice. I hope you do the right thing with your time and your energy. I hope you don't end up with a lifetime of regrets having sat at a desk playing video. Whoa, wait a minute. How do you define book? I mean, what do you really mean here? How do you define waste of time? Logically, this is really hard. Oh, well, this is a slippery slope fallacy, some people wrote in to say, right? This reminds me of some advice and attitudes about romance, about human relationships. In England, I heard this all the time. So Melissa hasn't spent that much time with the British. British guys all the time would say, like, well, you can never make a woman happy. You can never make another person happy. You can never be responsible for someone else's happiness. So, and here's the weak part, so why even try? So there's this great phrase in England. A lot of British guys live by this. Keep her keen, treat her mean. This is a justification for basically just being awful to your girlfriend. And the principle of the thing is that each person should only be interested in their own happiness. In their own... Why? Because you can't make another person happy. Slippery slope fallacy, huh? You think so? You think? I mean, this is a different fallacy. This is, you can't be 100% perfect. So why even try to be 50% positive? Why be 50% or 80%? Why even find out how close to 100% you can come? Why even try? Why try hard, right? If you can't be 100%, right? And we hear this all the time in veganism, right? So one of the main counter arguments was, well, you could never be perfect. You could never devote all of your time to positive things like humanitarian work and philosophy and learning. So why even try? And again, like the relationship, to me, it's very parallel to what the discourse about dating and romance in England when I was there that I heard and also read in newspapers and magazines. You saw the extension of that discourse going on in popular culture. Well, their conclusion is that they should be completely devoted to their own self-indulgence, to their own enjoyment, whether that's through playing video games or through anything else. That if they were to read a book, they would only find reading a book justifiable on the same grounds as being a form of escapism, self-indulgence, entertainment. And their horror and their incomprehension is that I'm not just calling into question video games. I'm calling into question all self-indulgence, all entertainment. I'm saying entertainment is childish. Entertainment is for children. And, video games are merely one example. They happen to be the example that we have on a mass scale a problem with addiction to, with people spending 20 hours a week and more than 20 hours a week playing. I don't think we have a problem with people doing pottery for more than 20 hours a week and this sort of thing. Enjoyment. Enjoyment in the context of a world where you could be taking on adult responsibilities. Adult responsibilities for your own erudition, your own education, making yourself a better person, or making the world a better place? How much can you enjoy watering the lawn and gardening when you know that behind you, your house is on fire? Your neighbor is walking down the street and sees you there with your hose, smiling, watering the lawn. Maybe you got your trowel out, you're digging, working on the rose garden. And your neighbor says to you, what are you doing? What do you think? How can you enjoy yourself? I mean, it's not just that you're doing it, it's that you're enjoying yourself doing it. Well, the roof of your house is on fire. You only have so much water in this hose, or you have only so much time and so much energy. Why don't you turn around and start spraying the water at the roof of your house? Why don't you try to save your house from the fire? How can you do this? Look, guys, after you emerge from a pretty primitive level of ignorance and self-absorption, you must realize that in this life, somebody's house somewhere is always on fire. And yeah, it seems more absurd when it's your house. But, I gave a positive example. I talked about this guy, Rewi, who's out getting involved in humanitarian work in Syria and its neighboring countries. And I said to you guys, he's not Syrian. It's not his problem. It's not his fight. And I said he could have thrown a dart at the map and helped. He could be in Ethiopia. He could be in all kinds of places. I don't know, Switzerland. There's, what? Even that. I'm joking. But, there are poor people in Switzerland. There are social problems. There are political struggles in Switzerland. You could make a positive difference in Switzerland, too, and you could start doing research and humanitarian work and probably learn a lot in Switzerland also. So, yeah, in principle, you can throw it. Okay, not Antarctica, maybe. Well, you can throw a dart at the map, and almost anywhere, you could get positively involved, right? And yeah, this is part of my perception of the world philosophically before I was involved in veganism and before I was involved in Buddhism. But it fits very well with Theravada Buddhism and veganism and all the rest of it. The world is on fire. The world is on fire ecologically. The world is on fire in terms of social inequality, poverty. The world is on fire in terms of war in all directions at all times. And there's always urgent, crucial need for you to do whatever it is you can. And what you can do may be trivial. But I've made many, many videos talking about this. And I know even Rewi himself sent me fan mail about this. The ultimate product is not peace. The ultimate product is not that you end the war in Syria and create brotherhood and goodwill between men. The ultimate product is not that you end poverty, right? The impact you have may be infinitesimal, right? The product is you. The product is what kind of person do you want to be? Do you want to be the self-indulgent, fatuous person who's standing there watering his garden, smiling and laughing, working with his trowel, planting rose bushes, whatever you want to say? Do you want to be the person fiddling while Rome burns? Do you want to be the person playing video games? Do you want to look back and say, yeah, what did I do with that decade? Yeah. There was the war in Afghanistan, there was the war in Iraq, and there was Syria, and there was, but look, whatever. Cambodia, Japan, there are problems everywhere. Even within Japan, a peaceful and in some ways economically successful country. Believe me, there are issues you could be digging into, and you could be learning. This is my fundamental point here. Do you want to be the person who spent that decade, whether it's the last decade or the next decade, just devoted to your own self-indulgence and enjoyment? Because if that's who you are, I can tell you right now who you're going to become 5 years from now and 10 years from now. And for those of you who were reading in the comments section, I think you saw every single time I asked Vegan Gains about that. He didn't want to answer that question. I said, Richard, who do you want to be? Who do you want to become 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And how are you going to get there? Is it going to be by playing video games? Is it going to be by living a life of reckless self-indulgence and doing whatever it is you want to do whenever you want to do it? For me, part of becoming the person I want to be actually does involve reading Aristotle, as ridiculous as that sounds. Melissa and I talked about this, I was going to say years ago, whatever, maybe 1 year ago now. But you remember I said to you, I made a list of the most important sources from ancient Greece and Rome. And I said, what you got to realize is everybody who's made a difference in Western civilization, even Bill Clinton, they've all read the books on this list. You know, it's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. Some of those major works in the history of political philosophy. Yeah, Bill Clinton may seem like a really shallow guy, but, you know, you look at even just the list of university courses he went through and so on. Whatever, the prime ministers of England, everyone who's been through a quote-unquote greats program at Cambridge and Oxford. There's a whole social elite out there, and they know these books, and you don't. So, you know, you can take away the difference. You can level the playing field right now just by getting up to speed with the foundations of democracy, political philosophy, and so on and so forth. Sure, in some small way, reading Aristotle really did matter for me becoming the person I wanted to be. And some of those things, you get into them without knowing what they're... Most people who commit to studying Buddhist philosophy, they don't really know what they're studying until it's too late. You know, they have a vague idea, maybe from watching kung fu movies, legitimately. For many people, it's their first encounter with Buddhist philosophy. They think, okay, I'm going to commit so much time and so much effort to reading Buddhist philosophy. Then you find out after what Buddhist philosophy really is. I think that's especially true with religion and religious philosophy, right? Creativity and destruction in many contexts are one and the same thing. When you take a block of stone and you remove what you don't want from it, what remains is a statue in the image you've chosen to create. Who I am now, at 40 years old, is the product of, in this sense, creative destruction. There are aspects of my character I don't like. There's the person I was when I was 16 years old, 18 years old, even 25 years old. And yeah, you know what? Some of those things I've taken away. And some of those things probably were the habit. They were produced through the habit of playing video games back when I was 11 or what have you. Or they were just the product of childish ignorance and the upbringing I had and the parents I had and the culture I was raised in. All kinds of things I can't change and I don't have control over. Right? In a sense, we're making it easy just in talking about Aristotle. Talking about something positive that you grab onto and add to your body of knowledge. And in not talking about the things we subtract, we delete, we take away. But one and the same image of a man can be described positively if you're sketching it out with a pencil on paper or if you're carving it away from a block of stone. Right? It can be the same image. And what we're doing in choosing who we want to be and then making the sacrifices and commitments and effort and energy to become that person. Sure, it's destructive. Sure. If Richard wanted to step up and be a better person, he'd have a lot to lose. He'd have to lose a lot of the things that have become comforts to him, that have become a crutch. And there's no doubt that's why the reaction to my saying something so simple and so plain is, what can I say, is so surreal, is so absurd. People don't want to hear. It's simply advice nobody wants to hear. I could end the video there, but let's just address one more issue that was raised. Some people wrote in really sincerely claiming that there is no difference between reading a book, talking about reading philosophy, reading Aristotle, and playing a video game. Okay. Let's treat that as a sincere objection. What if there's someone who's so ignorant and their experience of this life is so limited that they have only read books that were of such extraordinarily low educational value that they really were just as bad as playing a video game? You know, what if there's someone who listened to that video, and when I talk about reading the philosophy of Aristotle at age 19 and reading it again at age 39, they can't relate. Where for them, the most meaningful thing in their lives actually has been playing video games. And they really genuinely don't know what I'm talking about when I say that reading a book, studying history, politics, languages, or getting out in the world and doing real things, doing humanitarian work, that they actually don't know that. Because, look, books are on a spectrum. There are some books so meaningless that they are just as much of a waste of your time as playing video games. And there are some books so meaningful that are such a productive educational use of your time that it blows my mind to hear them compared to video games. Sure, there's a spectrum out there, right? And if you don't really have that experience, I mean, what can I tell you? I pity you. But here's what you should be able to get. There isn't just a distinction here between meaningful and meaningless. There isn't just a distinction here between great art and vacuous entertainment, right? The other distinction I'm trying to get at here is between real and fake. And that's why I talked about heroism, right? That's why I talked about going out in the real world and doing real things. Because ultimately, what I'm asking you to do is not to act out the fantasy of being a hero in a video game, but to take seriously the potential you have to be a protagonist in your own life. To reject easy virtue in a simulated world that lets you design cities. Let's just stick with that example. City building games. Have you ever thought about how much work it would be for you to go down to City Hall, whatever city you're living in, and just get involved in a few political issues at the local level? Pollution in the river, city planning. For you to have an impact on the future of your city politically in real life, how many years of hard and humbling work that might be, and what that might do to you, and what kind of person you might become. Playing video games is easy. Playing video games is entertaining. And many correctly discerned that my philosophy is basically anti-entertainment, anti-self-indulgence. I'd say that my ethical system is based on inverse hedonism. Because from my perspective, I don't understand how you can stand there smiling and enjoying gardening in your lawn when you know right behind you your own house is on fire. And if you're so selfish that you only care about your own house, I see that as a terrible myopia of our times. Why can't you just look over the fence? Why can't you look at your neighbor's house? Why can't you look down the block? Yeah, through the magic of the internet, it's easier than ever to know we don't live in a global utopia. Somebody's house somewhere is burning down. And there's a real question of justifying living a life of self-indulgence. Living a life for your own entertainment. As an adult, when you're 5 years old, it's different. 5-year-old on an airplane or a train, sure. My daughter plays video games sitting next to me on the train when there's really nothing else productive she can do at 5 years old. There comes a time to put childish things away and to start to get seriously interested in responsibility as an adult. And that responsibility is not just to make the world a better place. It's to make yourself a better person.